Hey plant fiends, fanatics, and family, this is Nate from Fate Exotics. Today we're going to show you how to wake your carnivorous plants up from dormancy. We're going to show examples of Sarracenia, Venus flytraps, and butterworts. Enjoy! Alright guys, let's get into it. Some of the tools you're going to need is various tweezers. I like a small set, especially if I have to break up some Venus flytraps. Larger set, just picking sphagnum, weeds, anything. I always have two sets of scissors, one good pair of kitchen shears that's pretty strong. This is for taking off old residual pitchers, and a smaller set for trimming fly traps. You're also going to want, or at least what I use, is a dish of distilled water. This kind of helps me clean off any of the rhizomes, just so I can look to see if they're still healthy, if there's any bugs or anything that got into them. This is Sarracenia Night Sky. You see it's got its old pitchers, the sphagnum's kind of overgrowing the pot. One of the first things, flip it upside down, set the pot to the side. You can still see there's some moisture, darker content. You don't want to keep the your plants too wet during the winter. That's what causes root rot. You can see here the sphagnum, it's growing up out of control. And you can do is easily just kind of pull the excess away from the plant. Set it aside because it will come back. Once you get into the main root ball of it, you just want to give it a nice little squeeze. You can see that some root growth has already started. You want to be careful not to damage as many roots as possible. Just work the root ball, get as much of the loose soil off as possible, where you can really get to the meat and potatoes per se. We're slowly getting to it. Once you get in, you should still feel that the roots themselves are, like the interior is still pretty cold. That's why you see there isn't any new growth yet, new pitchers coming up, so this is the perfect time to repot if you have to. Slowly working the plant out. Shaking some soil if you have to. So once you get to a certain point, sometimes it's almost difficult. It's almost nearly impossible to get to actually where you can visually see the rhizome in order to. If you see I'm lightly pulling on it, you can see where the plant wants to separate, but I want to make sure that I'm separating it where it needs to, and I'm not going to damage any possible new root growth. Excuse me. I want to make sure that I'm not going to damage any possible pitcher growth for this coming spring. So that's what the handy dandy dish of distilled is for. Just lay it in there, give it a good wash. This is more or less the rinse cycle. Just kind of cleaning up the roots to where you can really get to the rhizome and see what it looks like. As we get closer in, you can see that off of this plant there's multiple growths that could be divided, but because this plant is still young and this will probably be the first year it may flower, you don't really want to put too much into it, because if your main goal is to harvest seeds, then you want to kind of carry it on. So right about here is where those plants are going to divide. And all you got to do is just slowly pull. You don't want to pull fast. You want the roots in the plant to kind of give way on itself. And then just work them back and forth. There you go. One plant is now two. The benefit to this is that both these plants, which is one plant, well, was one plant, will have an opportunity to spread out and grow even more, not limiting where it can grow around. Now those two plants are ready to be potted, so I'm transferring everything into square pots. Get yourself a square pot. This is a 50-50 soilless mix of peat and perlite. It's pretty much a go-to when it comes to a majority of pitcher plants. Get your pot. Now, as you're studying here, you want to be careful. I don't always like to lop right off at the base. Majority plants you can always leave 3-4 inches up off the pitcher, and all you do is just snip, just like that. What this does is it keeps you far enough away, say if you have any new growth that might be coming up from cutting off that new growth, but it gives you just enough to where you're able to kind of look at the plant, see how it's doing. This time, if you have any sphagnum, you can take it out, just kind of pull it apart, put it aside. Sphagnum's a must, you always got to have it. Just gonna push back a hole. Now with the root systems, I try not to just wad them up there, because what happens is over time as they grow, you just get a tight packed root system, which in the long run just kind of hurts the plant. Well, this is a long root system. I typically like to leave the rhizome about here, out of the soil, just so I can watch pitcher growth. Fluff the roots, gently put them down into the soil. And there you go. That sphagnum that we took from before, just lay it back on there as a top coat. Even though your sphagnum looks dead, it will most likely come back. There you are. Clean up your mess, throw that stuff off to the side. This all goes into the compost. Next up, Venus flytraps. You'll see you get a lot of trap die off, things along those lines. I typically don't like to run sphagnum in my traps, just due to the fact that the sphagnum wants to grow more than the Venus flytraps themselves. So, same thing, just knock it out. The root system's all over. Just softly work the soil out away from the plants. Once you start getting into the plants, they should easily come right out of the soil, depending on if they've latched onto something or not. These really don't need to be, oh, this one can. So, let's clean this off a little bit and show you here. So, you have your main mother bulb here, and then you have two little smaller divisions growing off of that. at this point you can see they've already detached from her. So the easiest way is just to lightly maneuver them with your fingers. If you have a stubborn one, that's where the small tweezers come into. And just slowly work it out of the plant, just like that. And look at that. There's a third. So you can see here, this part of the rhizome died off and it's wet, mushy, not viable anymore. So you want to get in to just about where it starts to be nice. You want to stay into the soft still. You don't want to cut into new. And just snip it off. Once you have that done, you have your healthy rhizome, your healthy bulb left. And then from here you can go through and just trim off all the dead traps. Go through, do that with the rest of them, and then the repotting. Typically I only like to put the bulb in the soil. Once you get to the crown, I don't like to cover that up. I like to be able to watch it, because typically you could catch typically you can catch the start of root rot or crown rot from a Venus flytrap, but during the summer you're a little safer than that. It's typically once you start getting into dormancy that you can have some issues with your plants. So, fill up a scoop of soil. I don't like to firmly pack it. Let the plants breathe. Kind of position the bulb where you want it. The bigger tweezers come in just to kind of help coerce the roots into the soil. Once you have the plant where you like it, just kind of push the soil together. And there you are. Again, I don't top coat with sphagnum moss. It has a tendency to outcompete the Venus flytraps. You wouldn't be able to tell by looking in here, but if you look very, very closely, there's a couple hibernaculums. What that is it's the small bulb formation that temperate butterworts produce when they go into hibernation for the winter. I'll show you how to transplant those also. Again, starting with the sphagnum moss. Slowly clearing it out. I do have a little marshy pine tree that I've been trying to grow out, see how it comes. So the fun part here is trying to get to that hibernaculum, because you don't want to really destroy the roots. So what I like to do is I'll take my tweezers, try to remove any foreign plants that you don't want, and stay about 3 inches away and go down into the soil and just kind of pry. Because your soil is dry, it should be able to just pop right out. From here, very carefully remove any foreign items, as the plant may just still be contained into one specific area. Softly caress You want to carefully coax the soil out where it is. Remove any unwanted plants. And then pot it. Now, because pings don't typically have a long root system, the easiest way to do this is just kind of dome out the soil in the center and place it inside. You want to be very careful not to disturb that hibernaculum. Softly push around the outsides, and there you have it. Sarracenia, Dionia, and butterwort. Hope this has been helpful. I really appreciate a like, share, and follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions, feel free to message in the comments below, or get a hold of us on Facebook. Our tag handle is Terrafate Exos, TERRAFATE EXO. Thank you. Take care.